Have you ever wondered why things are named the way they are? Like tree, plant, or even a cow. Or sometimes when you look around a flower, why flower called a flower? Or sometimes when we look on the sea, it's called the sea. Why it couldn't be a sun or a tree? Maybe sometimes we are asking how and why.
Structuralism is a 20th century intellectual movement and approach to the human sciences which has had a profound effect on linguistics, sociology, anthropology, and philosophy. Attempts to analyze specific field as a complex system of interrelated parts. All the core of structuralism is the idea that all human activity and its product, even perception and thought itself, are constructed and not natural. That everything has meaning because of the language system in which we operate. In closely related to semiotics, understood as the study of signs, symbols, and communications, and how meaning is constructed and understood.
Structuralism began its movement in 1960 in France. Among many pioneers in structuralism, the major proponents that can largely contributed to this movement were Claude Lévi-Strauss and Roland Barthes. However, the origin of structuralism is rooted to the work of Ferdinand de Saussure, a Swiss linguist and the father of structuralism, but it soon came to be applied to many other fields, including philosophy, anthropology, psychoanalysis, sociology, literary theory, and even mathematics. Saussure developed a science of signs based on linguistics, now famously known as semiotic or semiology. Semiotics or semiology is the study of signs, symbols, and signification. It is the study of how meaning is created and not what it is. He argued that many languages is just a complex system of a sign that express ideas with rules which govern the usage. He called the underlying abstract structure of a language langue, the concrete manifestation or embodiments parole, concluded that any individual sign is essentially arbitrary. There is no example of a signifier. Commonly, in linguistics, this theory was developed in opposed to perception of reality to a representational of and a dependent one.
In addition, this theory emerged from theories of language and linguistics where it looks at the underlying elements and structure in culture, and literature that can be used as a channel to further interpret the surface meaning of a text or idea. Basic tenet number 1. Structuralists believe that in order to fully understand the concept or idea, one must look on its underlying elements and structures and see the common patterns involved. For structuralism, in order to understand the concept or idea, one must look on the bigger structure that underlies it and see how it relates to other things that is found in the same structure. For instance, in order to single leaf, you must also study the tree where that specific leaf came from. It only denotes that we cannot understand the concept. If we just look on the surface of the word or concept, but one must examine the bigger underlying structure of it.
Imagine the relationship of egg and chicken. One cannot fully understand the concept of the egg without also studying the chicken, which is the bigger structure. Since language is the basis of structuralism, in addition to the outmost tenet mentioned earlier, that structuralism composed of underlying structures and patterns, Further studying language can guide us towards analyzing and understanding literary pieces. According to Saussure, language is just a complex system of signs. All words we say, all human activities, even our perception and thoughts are constructed, and it is not natural.
Allow the reader to think about choices in life, whether go with the mainstream or go alone. Of the life is a journey. This poem highlights this time in life whenever decision has to be made. Which way will you go? The ambiguity is spring from the question of free will versus determination. Whenever the speaker in the consciously decide to make the road that is off the beaten. Rock on only those because he doesn't the road with the external factors therefore make up his mind of him. The poem depicts that highlights a traits and poke fun at and a friend from England would often regret not having taken a different path. Thomas Wood said, over the might have seen and done, and Frost has romantic. In other words, Frost's friends regret not taking the road that might have offered the best opportunities. Frost liked to taste and good, he told Thomas, no matter which road you take, you're always shy and wish you taken another. So it's ironic that Frost meant to be poem to be somewhat light-hearted, but in turned out to be anything but people take it very seriously. It is the hallmark of true poet to make such every realities, in this case, the sights of the friend on a country walk, and transform them into something so much more. The, the poem is all about what did this person face with an important conscious decision, choose the best popular, the path of the most resistant. He was destined to slow down one, regretted not being able to make it with, so it sacrificed one another. Ultimate, the leader is left to wake up their own mind about the emotional state of the speaker. At the end was the choice of the road less traveled positive. It certainly made the difference, but Frost does not make it clear just what different is. The speaker opts at random for the road, and once on it, declares himself happy because it has more grass, and not many folk have been down. Anyway, he could always return one day and try the original road again with the possible, perhaps not life as a way of letting one things leading to other until going backwards is no longer an option. But who knows that the failure hold down the roads.
First, let's start in existentialism theory. Existentialism is a philosophy that emphasizes individual existence, freedom, and choice. It is the view that humans define their own meaning in life and try to make rational decisions despite existing in a rational universe. It focuses on the question of human existence and the feeling that there is no purpose or explanation at the core of existence. So, what precisely is existentialism? In other words, existentialism is concerned with figuring out how to explain an individual experience, concentrating like a laser on what it means to exist as a unique human being in a cosmos we don't fully comprehend. As a result, existentialists think that people are completely free but must assume personal responsibility for their actions. Therefore, it emphasizes the importance of action, freedom, and choice, and claims that the only way to rise above humanity's basically ludicrous position, marked by the pain and impending death, is to use our own freedom and choice, a complete rejection of determinism. There are three core principles of existentialism: phenomenology, freedom, and authenticity. First, let's talk about phenomenology. Phenomenology is a philosophical movement developed by Edmund Husserl in the early 20th century and later adapted by Heidegger and others. Phenomenologists are interested in examining and underlying structures of consciousness and experience, typically emphasizing the crucial importance of the first person's perspective in understanding ourselves in the world around us. For example, if we were to describe our experience, let's say looking at a bowl of fruit, typically we would rather passively describe the distinct objects we see: a banana, an apple, some oranges, and the bowl itself. However, phenomenologists would advise us to take a step back at this point. When we look at a dish of fruit, what do we truly feel? Is it only these specific items? Is it a cohesive array of forms, textures, colors, noises, and fragrances, the passage of time, our mood, possibly a fleeting longing for an orange, or the overwhelming aversion of fruit that we don't like? The point is that, when you think about it, our experience of the world is characterized wholly by intentionality. First, let's talk about phenomenology. Phenomenology is a philosophical movement developed by Edmund Husserl in the early 20th century and later adapted by Heidegger and others. Phenomenologists are interested in examining and underlying structures of consciousness and experience, typically emphasizing the crucial importance of the first person's perspective in understanding ourselves in the world around us. For example, if we were to describe our experience, let's say looking at a bowl of fruit, typically we would rather passively describe the distinct objects we see: a banana, an apple, some oranges, and the bowl itself. However, phenomenologists would advise us to take a step back at this point. When we look at a dish of fruit, what do we truly feel? Is it only these specific items? Is it a cohesive array of forms, textures, colors, noises, and fragrances, the passage of time, our mood, possibly a fleeting longing for an orange, or the overwhelming aversion of fruit that we don't like? The point is that, when you think about it, our experience of the world is characterized wholly by intentionality. Next, let's talk about freedom. If the principle of phenomenology gave existentialism its basic shape, that is a technique for getting at how things really are, for going behind the stale categorization of common sense and natural science to describe human existence for what it really is. Then the principle of freedom gave existentialism its founding value, as contemporary philosopher Jonathan Weaver argues in his 2018 work, Rethinking Existentialism. This dizzying freedom for existentialists is the cause of most of our uneasiness in a cosmos seemingly devoid of direction, purpose, or meaning. Confronting Sartre to argue that we are commanded to be free, because many existentialist philosophers were atheists. They felt that no one is given a predetermined path or goal, and that human beings have no intrinsic nature or worth other than the fact they exist. To put it in other way, being aware of our own existence is the most essential aspect of what it is to be human. It's up to us, moment by moment, to utilize our existences to form our own nature and ideas to construct whatever essence, whatever human being we want to become. at Sartre's famous states. As a result, existentialists believe that we are entirely responsible for who we are and for the actions we make. Of course, many neuroscientists and philosophers today that disagree that we have such freedom, arguing that free will is an illusion. Lastly, authenticity. Finally, once we've acknowledged the importance of the first person's perspective and recognized the ultimate freedom we have in our lived existence, moment to moment, we have to come to another core principle of existentialist philosophy, adopting an instance of authenticity. To avoid the anxiety and alienation that recognizing our ultimate freedom and responsibility can bring, we should accept the fact who we are, including the fact that we are mortals who will die one day. As other philosophies like Epicureanism advise, and the truth to it, refusing to bow down to anything that compromises our personal freedom of authenticity, whatever it external pressures, societal norms, or escapist pleasures. In conclusion, whereas the common notion of existentialism concentrates upon greed and despair in a meaningless cosmos, the formal philosophical movement is more comprehensive, involving the three basic ideas. To begin, it entails an awareness of phenomenological, deliberate, first-person's perspective, fundamental relevance in correctly comprehending ourselves and the world. Second, it relates to an importance of our own freedom and responsibility in our daily lives. Finally, it maintains the notion that personal authenticity is our most valuable asset, since it helps us to accept ourselves as we are, live in harmony with the world, and therefore lessen anxiety and alienation.
Let's move on to the related literary piece in existentialism theory. I have here a literary piece named Hidden Figures in 2016. We all know that existentialism theory emphasizes individual existence, freedom, and choice. Why is that hidden figures related or connected to existentialism theory? Hidden Figures talks about Black Lives Matter. It talks about the three main characters named Mary Jackson, Katherine Johnson, and Dorothy Vaughan. These three women fight for their rights to be sensible, to be feel, to be included, and to be educated in society. Even at that time, black slavery exists. They are not afraid to show that black woman is beyond expectations of white people. These three women work in NASA as an employee. Dorothy Vaughan was NASA's first black manager. He also fought for her education to have an astronautic subject in college. Katherine Johnson first ever calculate the orbital mechanics of NASA employee. And Mary Johnson was first ever black woman in NASA. So how hidden figures connected to existentialism theory? After they published Hidden Figures, black women or black people's address, they have the freedom to exist in the society. They are respected and they are included in society. After the publishing of Hidden Figures, they have their freedom. The freedom in politics, the freedom in the society, the freedom in education, and the freedom in all aspects of lives. And after Hidden Figures published, they have the choice to live and to expose themselves in the society. This how existentialism connected to hidden figures that individuals, white or black or any adversities, any nationalities, any color and any age should be exist, should have their freedom and should have their choice in the society. This is the end of our report. We hope that you've learned to us and to our report, and thank you for listening.